Gavin, and the Steen Sinner for Blindy Fada, that we are a Protestant Parliament for Protestant people. And as we grow Catholic on, because sin masla vi on.
In the Republic, few enjoyed a high living standard. Many were unemployed. Hundreds emigrated every week. By the end of the 50s, the country had lost 500,000 people. The country was drained of its young. After 30 years of independence, economically the country was in a downward spiral. In 1952, hundreds of IRA volunteers attended the annual Republican commemoration at the grave of Republican martyr Wolfe Tone, the green shoots of a freshly motivated organization. Responsibility for this revival was down to 3 leading Republicans, Tony McGann, Thomas McCurtain and Paddy McLogan. From the IRA's Dublin HQ, the 7-man Army Council controlled the small but unified IRA movement north and south of the border.
Bhí an massagum an vertica. Sílim Gordini Comasakid, agus near Antic Sheila Ruddy Bioga, Nih Bioga. Vi si dirhe an rod mór, Entahe, agus near Oven Aumacola, Plaikiocht na Enrod Marshin.
The 3 Macs were conservative IRA veterans who were deeply attached to the nationalist ideals of the War of Independence era. For them, the IRA would be a disciplined army of morally upright volunteers, guided by the single-minded pursuit of a united Ireland by force. They themselves had made sacrifices for their beliefs. Tony McGann had sold his farm to pay for the struggle.
It was the money from that, really, that helped to set up the IRA. It was the seed money, if you like, to restructure the organisation.
McCurtain, whose father was a martyr of the War of Independence, had a death sentence for murder commuted to 8 years of solitary confinement in a southern prison. On release, his belief in the armed Republican struggle was, if anything, even stronger.
Violence is no longer, or ever was, the best way, or the most convenient way, or the most comfortable way, or the most comforting way. But it is the only way. And you say times have changed. Have times changed that much?
In the late 40s, McLogan, McCurtain and McGann made 2 critical policy decisions that would shape the movement for the next 50 years. They subsumed the effectively defunct political party Sinn Féin, along with its newspaper, The United Irishman. From now on, this would be the mouthpiece through which the IRA would impart its message to the nation.
No, we never looked beyond what might happen on the political line. Sinn Féin could deal with that. We had very little to do with Sinn Féin. I was never at a Sinn Féin meeting. Most of those I knew didn't, if you like, have much time for Sinn Féin.
The second decision was the introduction of Army Order No. 8, a rule that forbade any military action south of the border. From now on, all energies were to be devoted to a military campaign against the north of Ireland. Ending partition would be the IRA's raison d'etre.
This was a tremendous change for the IRA. It focused everything on the north of Ireland. It gave us a great freedom, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think everybody was very happy that we weren't shooting at people in the south of Ireland. And I think it was a very wise move at the time.
Early in 1954, the IRA received an interesting piece of intelligence. The only thing standing between it and the armoury at Gough British Army Barracks in Armagh was a single sentry with no magazine in his gun. Eamon Boyce, the Dublin intelligence officer, was put to work assembling a raiding party.
Personally, I went up for 6 successive weeks and observed the barracks from various vantage points, and we obtained a fair bit of knowledge about the setup. And then Charlie Murphy suggested if we could get a man into the British Army.
That man would be volunteer Sean Garland, who immediately travelled from Dublin to Armagh and joined the Royal Irish Fusiliers.
Charlie and I made journeys up, met Garland. He brought us out all the information. He even suggested that we attend a dance on a Friday night, which was attended by all the local girls in Armagh City. We took over 100 photographs with a Minox camera of all aspects of the barracks. 4 of us went up in the car and approached the barracks. One of the 4 got out, went to the sentry, held up the sentry. The main body of men stayed in the town in a truck.
By extraordinary coincidence, the raid had coincided with the official visit of a high-ranking British Army general. As a result, every weapon in the base had been secured in the armoury.
And due to the filming which had been done earlier, they knew exactly where to go, opened the armoury and held up those in the armoury.
With the guard overpowered, the truck containing the rest of the team, dressed in a motley assortment of British Army surplus, purchased in a shop in Dublin, was ushered into the base by an IRA volunteer.
We took every weapon that was in the barracks. The alarm wasn't raised until 4 hours later. So the soldiers didn't come out, they didn't know what was outside, and they had no weapons anyway. Garland's information was tremendous. The car party, myself and the other 3, stayed on for another 10 minutes. We locked the guard room, locking the prisoners inside, and left. And I felt very elated. Tony McGann was waiting for us, and he was over the moon. He was astounded. He hadn't really, I think, believed that the raid would succeed.
Now, rearmed with British guns, the IRA faced their next challenge. In order to take on the North, it would have to turn its volunteers from raiders into soldiers. At the annual Republican parade, just days after the raid on Gough Barracks, the IRA issued a statement.
Let there be no doubt in the mind of any man or woman in Ireland on this matter. These arms were captured by Republican forces for use against the British occupation forces still in Ireland, and they will be used against them, please God, in due course.
Having stated their intentions publicly, the IRA leaders began to prepare for armed conflict in Northern Ireland. At camps around the country, hundreds of new recruits went into training.
Go me go láidir leis an tréanál, mar hasty wem saidiúr a dhéanamh Jim Hain agus an rud is mó a chorastam na go dúchach an trid agus nach méing ré fan a chunne agus nach mach dóhan tréanála agam.
They could dismantle and assemble a Thompson submachine gun or a 45 in the dark, load it or unload it. The same way with the magazine of the Bren gun, we could load it in the darkness of the night, clip in the rounds and count the rounds. We were very familiar and very well trained in like that because we'd done it over and over and over again.
And there was no doubt that we were training to go into a military situation, and there would be the likelihood of people being killed or imprisoned.